And when he took me back, I was so stuck because it was something that I had buried, you know? And I remember sitting there and I said, I remember that my mom's husband, well, before it was even her husband, it was her fiance. My mom's fiance made a move on me, right?
Wow.
And I said, maybe that's when it was invited in. Maybe it's when, you know, I let my mom know and she turned a blind eye. And she said to me, I'll just make sure he doesn't drink anymore.
Wow.
And I remember looking and I said, oh, now I've never experienced anything like that. So I just was like, okay. But I knew that I still felt how I felt. I knew I still felt scared. I felt now really overprotective of my like little sisters and stuff like that. I'm like, I ain't coming to no family, nothing. Right. So now I am like on a rampage, you know, and they got married. And I remember at the reception, I just stood at the door because at the reception, what? You're drinking,
Right.
you know? And so I looked and I said, wait a minute, she said he wasn't going to drink. Maybe it's just today. Maybe it's just for this celebration and things like that. And but then I would still keep seeing him do it. And I'm just sitting here looking like, Mom, you don't see that this is what he's doing, you know? Or you don't care, you know? And he took me back there and I was just like, shucks, I gotta get that off of me because even just that opening, maybe it now made me feel like, you know, people are always gonna be looking at me that way, you know? And I can't trust them. I can't trust men now, right? And even though I never went to a place where I was attracted to females or things like that, but I had a lot of friends who were already in that lifestyle. And I just treated them, you know, like who they are, who God created them to be, humans, right? But they would be who was around me. So it's kind of like that birds of a feather flock together kind of thing. To the person on the outside looking in, it may have looked like I was in that lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't really in a relationship with Christ at the time. Like I believed that there was a higher power and I believed in God and everything like that when I was a teenager. But it was more so like I felt like I had to clean myself up first before I could really, really, you know, be close to him. So during that time when there were classmates and friends around me who were in that lifestyle, I didn't think to myself, like, I need to remove myself from this, right? So this is all around me. So I'm thinking to myself, like, maybe it's just residue. Is this why it's creeping into, you know, my family now or whatever? But then he took me all the way back too. And he took me to when I lived in a shelter with my mom. And she had allowed me and my brother to stay over one of the other tenants inside of the building. And they had sons around our age too. And I remember it was just like we were sleeping. I remember being asleep, and then I remember being woken up because someone was like touching like my leg or like something like that. Now I'm not thinking anything of it at first because we were all like in the same bed together, you know what I mean? And then I began to like feel them kind of like touching like my thigh and things like that. So I kind of started moving. And I realized that when I would move, they would stop.
Wow.
So then once I was still for a little while, it would happen again, you know what I mean? And they're like, you know, touching different places. And I'm just like, I would move again. And once I moved, they would stop again. So it let me know that this was wrong, you know? And I think about when I woke up the next day and I went to back to my room or, you know, apartment, my mom never asked me like, you know, well, what happened? You guys good? Or, you know, anything like that?
Okay?
Are you okay? You know, was everything, you know, all right? And I just started breaking down when the Lord brought that back to my remembrance because I totally forgot.
Wow.
I mean, I just blocked it out. I just blocked it out, you know? And when he took me back there, he's just like, that spirit was always following your family.
Jesus.
It was always following your family. And no one ever spoke about it. No one ever did anything about it. Nobody ever, you know, talked about it. And so I remember my mom sharing with me that it had happened to her, you know?
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa. Now, I don't know if it ever happened to her mother, like my grandmother, but I just sit up there and I look at that, that bondage, right? It's happening to my mom. And so I'm not sure what her whole emotional state was during the course of her life or what she did to deal with her trauma and stuff. But now you have children, and instead of, I guess, kind of making us aware that, hey, sometimes these things happen, make sure y'all let me know this. It was just like, she was quiet. So then when it happened to me, I in turn was quiet, you know?
Wow.
And even when it happened with her husband, it was kind of like, I was quiet the whole time. I didn't go to my mom and let her know what happened. She actually called me in for a family meeting, and he had told her something different. And when I told her, that's not true, this is what happened. You know, she looked over at him, you know, like kind of shocked, like, wait, that's not what you told me.
Right.
So I'm over here just like, yeah, mom, get him. You know what I'm saying? It kind of in the manner of, it's just gonna be you and I. We got this, you know.
Right.
And it was just like, he's just not gonna drink anymore. And so when I look at my family and I begin to see it happening there, I was like, whoa, oh, this has to be destroyed. You know, Lord, I need to bring this to you. And I just began to pray, because going into that lifestyle, it's, it brings about so much. But it's the same as if someone was in addictions. You know what I mean? And I just didn't want it for my family. And I knew that the enemy was like present. I knew that he was right there, and he was just looking like, no, I'm going to once again be here, and I'm going to come this way again. But I'm like, speaking of again, if God did it before, he's going to do it again.
Right.
You know? And so in my family, I became the one who would speak. I became the one who is going to address it, who is going to expose it, who is going to talk about it, who's not going to just go ahead and just, you know, turn a blind eye, right?
You
And
became
so,
the curse breaker.
come on, not even knowing, right? I was just like, but I realized that anytime something was happening and going on, if we were having family meetings, I was the one that was calling them.
Right.
You know, I'm watching everything. My children couldn't go anywhere. They, you know, if they wanted friends over, they had to come to my house. You
Right.
know,
Right.
all my nieces, nephews, like I'm doing different things and trying to create, you know, just memories for them and traditions for my family, and they all had to just be where I was, and yeah, I was just like, I'm not going to be the one that's silent, but it comes with a price too, because the enemy wants your voice to be quiet. You know, and when you come up against him trying to put that muzzle on you, that target on your back gets bigger. And then I have to always remember when God's like, yo, you will be persecuted for my name's sake. And I'm like, I keep forgetting that. I forgot.
That part.
And then once I remember, I'm like, okay, fine. This is fine.
Right.
This is fine. You know what I'm saying? This is fine to go through this fire, you know? And as much as I would love for everybody to get where I am, and I haven't arrived or anything, right? But just the understanding of who Christ really is and how much I really need him, how I'm nothing without him, I can't put my feet into someone else's shoes and make them walk this journey with me, right?
Right.
Because a lot of people are just like, I'm gonna just take Broad Street because it has more lanes, which means it has more ways and opportunities of me to carry all my bags, all my baggage, all the stuff that the Lord is telling you that you have to let go when you go the narrow way,
Right.
you know? And so, yeah, when I began to see that homosexual spirit in my family, I just began to say, okay, what do I do? What else can I do? You know what I'm saying? I had to be proactive with this. And that's kind of, well, that's how I met you,
Right,
you know,
right.
how we begin to communicate your story, your testimony. And I was like, I can't be embarrassed right now.
Right.
I can't sit up there and say, let me just keep this to myself. I can't look at vulnerability as weakness, because I did before. I'm not telling all my business.
Right.
Mind your business, you know? And I don't even know her, you know? But Christ does.
And what was that like, stepping out on faith and communicating with me about opening up about certain things?
So yeah, so it was just like when I was saying, you know, I don't even know this girl. He says, test the spirit. Is the fruit shown?
Right.
You know, and I was like, Christ does.
Right.
She knows Christ. Christ knows her. It was very evident. You know, the Holy Spirit speaks the same. And when I came to you, I was sitting up there thinking to myself, like, how will I present this to her? What will I say?
Wow.
And once you know, were looking at me, and you were just like, yeah, what's going on? How can I help you? And I'm like, well, I just want to, and I began to share with you. It just came out just effortlessly.
Wow.
And when you said, and I sure will, I mean, it's just been great. The mentoring, you know what I'm saying, that my family was able to go through with you. I see the changes. I see that they are understanding that Christ is first. And so it's like, is he pleased with this? You know? And I think that was the biggest thing, because I was like, you know, when you choose to go this way and entertain this lifestyle, you're kind of saying like, God, forget you. You know? And so sometimes when parents say things, children, they draw a blank.
Wow.
Their ears are closed. They have no idea what you're talking about. And then someone comes along and says the same exact thing. And they're like,
Right, and they get
I got it. You know, so I just knew that I had to kind of
true.
take a step back so that I wasn't, you know, sitting up there being the one where they're just like, oh, you're just saying that just because. I was like, I need help, you know, and iron sharpens iron. He doesn't cause us to do life alone. You know what I mean? So I was just like, all right, Lord, here we go. And that was a big stepping out on faith for me, because I had to trust that I'm going to allow somebody else to pour into my family,
Right.
you know? Because I'm thinking, I'm always the best for my family.
Right.
But sometimes my family need a break from me, you know? And I didn't realize that. They looking like, you know, we love when you go to the store. We love when you go to the store, when you just go take your ride, and we're just like, ooh, you know?
Give us a break.
And it gives a break. But you know what? Speaking of break, when you were able to step in and do your mentoring and be led by the Spirit, and I was seeing the different responses and the behavior change and stuff like that, it gave me a break from having to like figure it out, you know? So I was just looking like, whoo, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for your servant, for your daughter.
Right.
So I'm grateful. Vulnerability brought about healing for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, first of all, I want to give God all the glory.
All of the glory.
It is nothing and nobody but Him.
Yeah.
Who leads us and guides us and directs us. And like you said, you know, when it comes to trust, when we just, you know, give it to Him. And sometimes we can't just give it to Him, because like you said, you go through different things in life that causes you to just
I was a
be your own
master
protector.
Indian giver. I would give God things. Let me get that real quick. Let me get that back. Let me get that back real quick. Let me just get that. You know, then I would give it to him again. I would let him hold it for a little while, and then I'm giving it back. And then he would say, let go. And I say, okay, first thing Monday morning, I'm going to pack this away. And I would let go, not realizing my pinky was still on it. I'm still holding on to it.
Right.
I'm still holding, and it's not until you get to certain things that you're like, I'm still dealing with that. Because we can say all day, I'm good. I'm good, but you really have to do the work. You cannot just talk this thing out. Like, you really have to do the work. When he shows you something about you, or when he brings something back to your remembrance and he's like, hey, this is the time that we're going to walk through this together, it's time.
And you know what? That's a great point you brought up. And like, for those watching, especially those parents watching, what does doing the work look like? I'm actually a two-part question. What does doing the work look like? And also, I wanted to ask you this earlier, but I'm going to squeeze this question in too.
Okay.
As it relates to doing the work, how did you begin to look at men differently over time? You know, because I know that because of certain things that occurred, it caused you to have trust issues with men in general. And that too is a trick of the enemy to try to invite, even though that's not the route you went, thank God, but that is a trick of the enemy to try to invite that spirit in. So what does doing the work look like?
So really applying it, right? It's kind of like if you sit up there and you study for a test. And when you study for the test, you get into the class, they give you the paper, pen, pencil, whatever, and then you just don't answer the questions. It's like, what? You just study for nothing. Why didn't you go ahead and write it down? Why didn't you get your points, get counted for this? So I would sit up there and have all these different ideas in my head, like I should do this, 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 and this. It sounded good, but I was never taking any actions to do so. So I literally had to just pray for consistency, for discipline. And it was that list that I told you about. Just because I'm a visual person, I had to write down, tomorrow we're getting up at this time, we're praying. We're going to read this scripture right here. And when I would read and like study the Bible, it was very much like I would start getting like lost in it in a good way. Like I would just keep going to this, this, this. And the Lord knew it was already going to take place, right? But then I also had to have those moments where I just sat there. And I would just have my notebook open. And I would just sit there. My thoughts are going. And He's answering me. And I would just sit up there and I would just write it down. And then I'm sitting there and I'm listening to instrumentals. No lyrics. Just instrumentals, you know. And I would just be praying. And as I'm praying, I would have to stop and write down what He's saying, because as I'm saying these things out, he's pouring more into me, more and more. Going to the resources, like, for one, like going to you and asking for help instead of just being like, I probably should ask someone, but actually taking that time to say, hey, opening my mouth and, actually doing it. And then making a day and a time, sticking to the day and the time. Because anybody that knows me, anybody that knows me knows that my best plans are the cancel ones. I love when somebody cancels. I'm like, yes, yes, So it was just kind of like showing up for me.
Right.
Because how am I upset that no one is showing up for me if I'm not showing up for myself? So showing up for me meant, like you said, doing the work. And doing the work was me looking at the resources that God put on this earth for that to help me, whether it was going to counseling or going to therapy or even going to the gym, you know what I'm saying, and getting certain things off of me so that I could feel better, doing things that I liked doing before that I put on the back burner, I couldn't remember the last time that I read a book just for the fun of it. And I love reading, right? And so it was like that was causing so much stress to be on me. And when I'm stressing, I'm eating. Eating until my stomach hurt, like binge eating.
Right.
And then once I'm binge eating, who has energy? Not me. So now I'm going to sleep, and I'm binge watching shows and different things like that. So I had to like get to a point where I was like, no, we're not going to eat all of this because that's going to give you low energy, and you already committed to doing this. So you have to, putting in that work was just like not just giving lip service, but really putting it into action.
And it's amazing how when you start to trust God, how you can just live. You can just live. You can go have fun, like you said, read a book, go to the store, fellowship. You can just live.
You can just live.
He's in control.
Because he's in control. And those opinions that I had in my mind that other people would have of me, that stunted me a lot too. That hindered me a lot too. Well, what are they going to think if I'm, and I was just like, yeah, that doesn't bother me anymore.
Right.
Christ said that I'm this. Christ said that I'm that. I'm going to believe that. He's the one that created me, so he has to know all the ingredients that he put inside of me. This has to be true. So it was just like, people, if you're doing like horrible, somebody got something to say. If you're doing mediocre, somebody got something to say. If you're doing great, somebody got something to say. And I was just like, the opinions just didn't matter anymore. I was just like, how am I looking to the Father?
Right.
Is this pleasing to him? It didn't matter what anybody else was thinking because my relationship with Christ is so important to me now. Like, it's just whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm like, we good with this? And I'm realizing that he's not just home waiting for me to get back home. He's with me everywhere I go. Wow. If I'm celebrating, if I'm at a party, if I'm at an event, if I'm at a fundraiser, he's with me everywhere I am. Right. So I'm just kind of like, why allow fear of what people are going to think hinder you from being the best version of yourself and everything that he created you to be, Right. So
as you started to become more vulnerable with Christ, obviously it started to affect your children, and they started to, see this new creature, this new mom.
Yeah, but that was a big thing too, being vulnerable with Christ.
Okay,
I had to learn being vulnerable with him because I was keeping things from him. I thought he knew, but I wouldn't bring him certain things. I would like sit up there and be like, I'll tell him this, I'll pray about this, but he don't really need to know that. Okay. And he was waiting for me to be vulnerable with him. And it wasn't until I was vulnerable with him and saying like, look, this is how I feel. And I don't really know why I feel this way, but I feel this way, and this is what I just did. And I have no idea why I just did it. I know you already told me, like just giving it to him. That's when I was able to trust him because I was like, dang, he didn't tell nobody what I said.
You made it personal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So it went hand in hand. I couldn't even trust him until I was vulnerable with him. And when I became vulnerable with him, I realized it's because I trust him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful. This whole discussion has been very, very, very much so powerful. And before we close this meeting, I want you to look into the camera and just minister from your heart, because you shared a lot today. And what stuck out to me the most was the trust. Just having that those trust issues along the way, the things you've gone through in your adolescence that's caused you to develop those trust issues, how, that spirit of homosexuality came close, how it attacked other members of your family, and how God showed you, the things to do to close that door, so along the way you begin to, to just get to know God in a deeper way, and allow your walls to come down as a result of trusting Him. So there's parents watching who they're struggling with that trust. They're struggling with being open and honest and vulnerable with God. Maybe they were taught, what happens at home stays at home,
Mm-hmm.
and so they need to hear from someone who's a parent, because I'm not a parent, but you are, so you get it,
Yeah.
who's been there, done that, who may be struggling with a family member who's dealing with same-sex attraction, who may be struggling with chapters that they never closed,
Yep.
in their lives. And so what can you say to those people watching that that would like to receive breakthrough in those areas? How can you go ahead and minister? Feel free to minister as the Lord leads.
So I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were telling me that they were having a hard time. And I remember already talking to them, like prior to when they reached out again. And I let them know that this wasn't a breakdown that they were getting ready to experience. It was a breakthrough that they were getting ready to experience. And the Lord will allow us in different parts of our lives to go through experiences that will shape us. It isn't because He's trying to put us on punishment or we did something wrong, but He's calling us higher. And so when I look at everything that I'm going through, because for me, it isn't necessarily like I've been there, done that. It's like I'm there, I'm doing it. Like this is like a work in progress, like right now. I would really just say, like, you have to be honest. You have to be honest, because when you hide things, or when you, and it does not mean, hear me out, it doesn't mean that you speak to everybody about what's happening, what's going on, that you share everything that's happening, that's going on. But it does mean that you need to admit it to yourself. Why am I like this? Go to Christ. He will reveal it to you. And He say, okay, Lord, I see what happened there. Walk with me through it. Walk with me through it. I am at a place where trusting God is the only thing that I can do, because I tried everything else. I tried everything else on my own. I tried to fix it on my own. I tried to do it on my own. I tried to be my own hero. It didn't work. It was a temporary fix. I'm not going to say there wasn't times that I didn't, in my mind, think that I made it happen. You know what I mean? Got it done. But it was nothing like getting just that relief from God saying, give this to me. I got this. It was such a refresher. And so for those who are dealing with your children being attacked, and you just looking like, I have no idea what to do. Maybe they're, incarcerated. Maybe they're on their way to being incarcerated. Maybe you're praying every day because you're just like, I don't want my child to go to jail. I don't want my child to die. I don't want to get that phone call. Maybe they're already in the lifestyle. Like, it didn't stop before you were able to get through to them. Maybe they want you to come to the wedding. You just got an invitation to their wedding, and you're just like, wait, what? Maybe they're so far deep, they brought a baby into it now. Alcoholism, whatever it is. As a parent, we feel for our children so much, and we always want to help them, when they fall down. I always think of that movie where Ray Charles, he fell down and his mom went to go help him, and then she had to stop. And that's what we have to do. We have to stop and really think about, what are we doing every time we intervene? This could be a moment where Christ is trying to get in there and we're standing in His way.
Right.
He could be allowing this to take place because it's a part of their journey. And so what we're doing is getting in His way. We all had to go through something in order to get us to this point. I don't regret any of the trauma that took place in my life, because it brought me right here to have more confidence that I was lacking before. And so your child has to go through the different things they have to go through. There are some things that can be prevented, yeah. You know what I mean? And we won't necessarily have to have an intervention if we can prevent it. But if you're already there on the brink where you're feeling like you're so drained because you're the one that's always running and trying to pay the bell real quick, you're trying to step in before it gets too deep, then you're already too deep and you have to stop. You have to stop. You have to stop because it's getting you to a place where you're going to lose what's really important. Christ is important. He wants these things to happen. He wants you to come to him. Who is Christ if you're not going to rely on him, if you're not going to depend on him, you know? And that can really be hard when you're in the thick of things, trust me, because there are times where situations are occurring and I mean, this tongue want to get spicy, these hands want to be laid, and I'm just like, God never said a mumbling word when they were doing all these things to him, you know? And are we not made in his image? So should we not sit up there and mimic Christ? Should we not do the things that he's doing? And there are things that, I mean, they hurt beyond what you can even express, that you can even explain. I remember just like right now, my family is currently walking through such a traumatic situation. I mean, it's my worst nightmare. You know, it is my worst nightmare. And I remember just wanting someone to just call me, text me, check in on me, especially like my church family. And no one was there.
But God.
I mean, that thing hurt me to my core. I was just sitting there just like, wait, what? And all the Lord said was, be still. And I'm like, no, but this is outrageous. This is, be still. And I can't thank him enough for helping me to be obedient with that, because I realized that if I had moved on my own,
And sometimes we think that's the devil when it's really God trying to get you to a point where you can be still.
Where you can be still.
Because he know that if you had that help, you wouldn't rely on him.
I would have still been there. I would have still been there, because you have some people who they turn to the church. And this is where it gets so crazy, because when people don't know what to do, they always hear, turn to God, turn to God, turn to Christ, turn to Christ. And then you go inside this place where you're thinking that it's going to be a safe place. And you vent, but it's used against you. Or you don't get the help that you need.
Right.
And so when you have some parents who are watching, who may say, well, I tried Christ. Christ didn't hurt you. The people of God did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And even in that, he teaches us forgiveness.
Yeah. And I realize now that I had to go through, so that when I come encounter with someone else, another parent, another family, whomever, who's went through the same thing, I can say, hey, you can get out of this, because if he did it for me, he can do it for you, and it can be the truth. I won't have to look at no notes. I won't have to look at, anything that I wrote down.
Right.
I can come from experience. No, you sure know this is what happened. And it's hard to take in, because when so many people are against you, it looks like you are the issue, you are the problem, And I had to just be still in that and just not move, not give the enemy any more ammunition,
Right.
And it's hard.
You.
He fights.
For you.
You can get low, This is one of those fights that you can duck.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're not going to be the scary one. You're not the nut. You're not the punk. This is a fight where you can duck, because the Lord never misses. He never misses, And so I look at everything and I'm just like, Lord, thank you. Thank you for trusting me with this situation. Thank you for trusting me with this circumstance. Right. Because maybe someone else wouldn't have been able to deal with it. They will commit suicide if they had to endure that. And I'm grateful for situations that he allowed to pass me by, Right.
And that's why you're here to tell your story, because your story is stopping somebody from committing suicide. It's stopping a parent from going down the path that you could have gone down had you not trusted God in that time.
And it gives you such a peace.
Yeah.
Like that peace of mind being disturbed is so irritating, but it's only because like the flesh is in the way, the flesh is working. But when we give it to Christ, I mean, even if we got to scream out and be like, I can't take this.
Right.
This hurts.
He wants that realness.
He comes right in and you're like, whew. And now there is no power over you anymore.
Right, that's it.
They can't push your buttons. They can't trigger you. They can't sit up there and, do certain things that's going to make you want to, flip the finger or whatever the case may be. It's just like you can just shrug your shoulders, and not in a bitter, nonchalant, I don't care attitude, but really not letting it bother you. You're just like, I'm
Right.
going to pray for you, you know. And so when
Because
our
it
kids,
keeps us low, and the lower we
Yeah.
are, the more our heart is soft. We don't want our heart to become hard, and you know.
yeah, and our hearts are something that it carries so much.
Oh yeah.
And so when
Oh,
we
yeah.
sit up there, sometimes these conversations can be hard, right?
Yeah.
So we'll shy away from them because we're looking like, ooh, I don't want to get too deep. I don't want to get all the way to the root of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes we get so comfortable with being the victims.
Mm.
We get so comfortable with calling people on the phone
I
and being
know.
like, my child did this and da-da-da-da. And we just want to hear what they're going to say, like, oh, you're such a great mom. You're such a great father. You're such a great this, that, and the third. We want that.
Right.
But Christ is just like, give that all to me, please. Give that all to me. Not some of it, but all of it. And I will work this for your good. And when I sit up there and I'm looking at how he's putting everything in place, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it was. But we got to make sure that we're not always pointing the finger at our kids. Oh, because I did this, and they need to do it. It's like, where did they get it from? It ain't always just the other side of the family. You know, some things like we got to admit, like, no, he got that from me. We got that from, you know. And so I'm just excited, you know, for people to just be encouraged, you know, that they aren't by themselves. They're not alone. They're not the only ones that have baby kids, you know what I mean? They're not the only ones that want to just go and, like, you know, choke them out. But we have to put Christ in the center of there.
Yeah.
Christ has to be evident in your home. It can't just be like, oh, as for me in this house, we're going to serve the Lord. But it's just like, well, what are you guys doing as a family? You know what I mean? What is going on? And for those who, their children aren't with them, they're waiting for them to come back. Give that to the Lord too. You know, give that to the Lord too, because there's nothing that we can do about it anyway.
Nope.
You know? So it's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing today.
Yeah.
I know that there's somebody watching who needed every single word that you said.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Thank you.
Be encouraged, woman of God.
Thank you.
As you already know, you are not alone. He's with you, whithersoever you goeth. And he's just a call away, no matter what time of the day. You know?
Yeah.
We appreciate you. We love you. And as always, there's a way out. His name